and we have these discussions on Wall Street Silver on the Reddit community, it's about hard assets, because these paper assets, something's going to happen. I don't know when. I'm not pretending to have a crystal ball as to when it's going to happen, but in my core, I do not believe that the federal government and the Federal Reserve can keep printing trillions and trillions of dollars to finance these deficits. I mean, our government is collecting about $4 trillion in tax revenue this year, and they're spending $8 or $9 trillion. We are literally going to have a $4 or $5 trillion deficit in 2021. And after 2020, it was like a $3 trillion deficit at the beginning of the virus. So this is just not natural. And financial currencies, fiat currencies, were not designed to survive this. This is why we had the gold standard at one point, to prevent governments from doing things like this. And I just tell everyone, I tell my relatives, I tell my friends, buy land if you can find something affordable, buy commodities. You got to have some hard assets that will survive the failure of a currency.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We are delighted to have first-time guests today. This is Jim Lewis and Ivan Bayoukhi. They are the co-founders of the WallStreetSilver Reddit subgroup. They're here with us to talk about the mission, the purpose, the founding of that group, where it's going next, to answer some questions about controversy that has swirled around that group and their activity, and get your questions answered as well. Guys, thanks for coming on to Liberty and Finance this first time. And this is Thursday, April 15th, 2021.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
We've wanted to have you on for some time. In fact, we were cheering when you interviewed Andy Schechtman, the CEO of Miles Franklin, about a month ago. Then we've seen you guys interviewed on other shows. We've seen you interviewed other luminaries on your show. We're frankly kind of rooting for you from our corner, because as when we've interviewed Australian economist John Adams, who is on a crusade to get people to bring truth and reality to the silver market as a place that the ordinary person can stand up and can let the light of truth shine into what's going on there. We know that you guys have been working for that as well. So that's one thing we want to jump in right away is, as the co-founders of the subreddit group, WallStreetSilver, what was the reason that you founded that? What drove you to do it? What's the purpose of why you did that in the first place?
Well, Jim, do you want to talk about the purpose of the whole WallStreetSilver, and then I'll tell everyone how I started it after?
Well, go ahead and talk about the Wall Street bets and what prompted you to actually start it, Ivan. That's the best place to start, I think.
Yeah. So I was in about January 29th, I was sitting with my dad, and he was watching a hockey game, Oilers, and I started seeing Wall Street bets on Reddit grow. They were first just a million users on January 29th or January 28th. And I seen them the second day grow 2 million users. Third day, they grew by 3 million users. So every day they were growing by 1 million users. And I said to myself, because I've loved silver for so long, that there's no way we can't grow a community just by 1,000 users a day. And then instantly we started the WallStreetSilver community. And it was all about waking up the masses. And that's the complete mission and goal for WallStreetSilver. It's everything from discussion on silver. There's discussions on, there's memes. So there's lots of the younger crowd. There's minor discussion. So it's really, really nice community. And then Jim, do you want to talk about just basically the goal and the whole movement going forward?
Yeah, all of us are very much into precious metals. And even though the title is WallStreetSilver, there's a lot of discussion about gold also, and what real money is. And a lot of business news discussions happen on the subreddit on everything that affects the silver market or the gold market.
Just for the sake of all of us who didn't grow up on Reddit, if you could just take 30 seconds and tell people what the heck is Reddit, and why, when you say there's all these discussions going on, what is it and what can people do there? That'd be the first thing.
Okay. Well, Reddit is the name of the company that owns the website, and there are what's called subreddits. So anyone who has a particular theme or subject, they can create a community around that subject. And our particular community is called WallStreetSilver. There are other ones that were more famous in January called Wall Street Bets, that was all around that GameStop phenomena that was going on, where they were trying to, break the shorts, the hedge funds that were shorting GameStop by just buy and hold and never let go, and all sorts of option gamma strategies. That was all in the news in January. And around that time, a lot of people wanted to start talking about other stocks at the same time. And a lot of people were trying to discuss silver shorts, how the manipulation of the silver market was something that Wall Street Bets, that community, those millions, should turn their attention to. And the moderators of the Wall Street Bets community on Reddit, they were not really interested in having that discussion. They wanted to keep the focus on GameStop, which was their obsession at the moment. So a lot of the silver discussion was banned from the community. And that's what prompted Ivan, well, we need a place to talk. If we want to talk about silver miners or silver manipulation or investing in precious metals or the news around those topics, we need a place. And so that prompted Ivan to go create WallStreetSilver on the Reddit website. And that was on January 29th. And it quickly grew by like 5,000 people a day for the first couple of days, because silver was going through the roof from 25 to 30 during those initial 3 or 4 days in late January, early February. Mm-hmm. And that's what sort of launched it to 15,000 users quickly within 1 week. And then sort of the market sort of calmed down on silver in February and March. But even with silver coming back down to the 25 area, we've kept growing. Between 500 members to 1,000 members a day, we're up to 57,000 members now in 10 weeks since Ivan started this back on January 29th.
So there was the mission. It sounds like it's a place of discussion groups, and the topic of discussion you desired was precious metals, with perhaps an emphasis on silver, but not exclusively. And you mentioned, both of you along the way, something about wanting to make sure that there is sort of the truth that coming out and what's really going on. Can you talk to us about why that's been a challenge? Why is that an unmet need? Why do we need to start something now in 2021 to talk about the truth about silver? What problem are you trying to address? A problem you're trying to solve with that?
Well, it's a common that it's an issue that a lot of channels are talking about right now in the finance community on YouTube. Even your channel, you discuss inflation, the outrageous government spending, what is true money, what is sound money policy. And a lot of us believe that the current fiat system and what the central banks are doing to not just the dollar, but also the euro and other major currencies, they're just printing with very unsound policies that are devaluing our dollar. And these, how does the average person protect themselves in this type of scenario when our fiat currencies are essentially falling apart or being manipulated? Mm-hmm. And many of us believe the best, a lot of the old gold bugs, they think it's gold. But a lot of people also think silver is the way to go, because silver has a lot more advantages in terms of being an industrial metal and also a monetary metal at the same time. Whereas gold is more just jewelry and a central bank metal. There's a lot of similarities for why both are sound money. Mm-hmm. There's a large community that believes silver, it might be the better source, the better focus of a sound money policy, or to protect yourself in an inflationary environment.
Okay, so that's about what's going on in the environment. So back to the heart of your mission, your goal. What is your vision for WallStreetSilver specifically? What do you see as being the purpose that you're trying to bring it? So you're opening this discussion platform. You've got a place where people can talk about these topics. Is that the core of the mission?
It is. It's about education, having a place where people can go find things out. We have a lot of the membership. The way Reddit works is people submit topics, and then the rest of the community upvotes or downvotes a topic based on whether or not it is useful. So the types of topics that rise to the top are the most upvoted topics by the community. So you see the most high value information. So it's about an education process where people who are new to precious metals or silver can figure things out and learn from others. That's basically how Reddit works and why it's so popular.
The fact that we're having to use brand new technology, brand new platforms, brand new approaches to try to wake people up and educate them to something. But wait a minute, we're trying to wake people up and educate them to something that our great grandparents already knew, our grandparents already knew. It's like, it's just weird. This is something that's as old as the hills. It's been just inborn into human experience of living on this earth. Money's been silver for as long as people have been walking the earth, and yet we're having to wake people up. That's part of what I think you're talking about, of why the truth movement or that sort of thing.
Well, since 1971, when we went off the gold standard, there's just been this. It seems like the government and the powers that be have just been on a mission to fool everyone into thinking that the dollar is somehow that's all that people need. But every paper fiat currency has failed. Most reserve currencies last about 100 years before they fail, and some new currency comes along as the world reserve currency. Before the US dollar, it was the British pound was the world reserve currency. And you got to just wonder, since we went off the gold standard in 1971, what went wrong? It seems like a lot of the things in life, the way we measure standard of living, something happened in 1971 that went south. And a lot of people suspect it was leaving the gold standard.
Yeah, your 100-year number, and I've heard other numbers anywhere from 40 to 80 years as well. And certainly, I just was speaking with a client today, and they said, when do you think the dollar collapse, or when do you think the dollar will lose its world reserve currency status? And that's the funny thing, because the dollar already having lost approximately 98% of its value since the Federal Reserve was founded in 1913. It's like waiting for that last 2% is calling that the collapse, rather than we've been living through it. My mom and her dad, so my grandfather, were extremely impacted by the Great Depression and railing against the bankers and what happened to people losing their farms, people having their properties repossessed, that sort of thing. We've interviewed Wayne Jett, the author of The Fruits of Graft, Great Depressions Then and Now, talking about how bankers and our relationship with them has been a struggle throughout the entire history of, even before our country was founded, but certainly throughout the history of our country. And that one of the things we were trying to get away from was the central banks of England and so on, and of Europe. And here we are back again under the thumb of the central banks. So I guess you're bringing together people, ordinary people, common people, to try to, at a retail level, just grassroots, share information, knowledge, awareness with each other. And not just for the sake of knowledge, but for the sake of action as well. What kind of actions have people taken that are part of the group?
Yeah, we have a lot of silver stackers. Like, there's an incredible amount of people who post pictures on the Reddit community on WallStreetSilver of just incredible amounts of silver. They design it too with like little Star Wars Legos. It's pretty incredible. And it's not just the memes too. Like, they're making quality videos on silver. So it's pretty incredible to see. And that's what I go to WallStreetSilver for, is you're seeing some, not only you have that incredible amount of knowledge and information, but you also have that fun side to it. You have those memes, you have the images, the silver stacks. And for the going back to your question earlier, the whole world has been manipulated for so long. So it's almost so easy. The bankers have made it so easy to wake up the masses and invite them to some sound money. And if you look back at history will always repeat itself. So that's how I see silver. Silver will always be there 10,000 years before or 10,000 years in the future.
We've spoken over the years many times with the Gold Antitrust Action Committee, such as Bill Murphy, co-founder of that, and also with Ted Butler, who's a legendary analyst in the precious metal space, and David Morgan since the very beginning, since 2013 we've been on. And they keep talking to us about what you were just saying, is that there has been evidence of unnatural concentrated market activity in the precious metals for a long time that's been by and large overlooked by so-called regulators such as the Commodity Futures Trading Commission and others. Question for you now is, we've heard criticism coming after, you mentioned that price jump that happened from roughly 25 to 30 around the end of January, beginning of February of this year. there's been criticism that that was caused by this collusion or activity between retail traders getting together and intentionally trying to force the price upward through their market activity, as though suddenly having non-concentrated activity that can actually affect the price is a problem in the eyes of officialdom, whereas concentrated activity that may have been in fact suppressing the price for decades was not a big problem. What is your official response to the reality of whether your group and the communications and the activity of members of the group actually caused that silver jump from 25 to 30 in the end of January, or about that principle of whether or not that represents anything sinister, or is that just ordinary people doing what they want to do to take care of themselves, and the consequences are Mother Nature finally taking its course?
Well, a lot of it was social media driven. A lot of people started talking about silver on Twitter and Reddit on the Wall Street Bets, and a hashtag started trending that week called Silver Squeeze, hashtag Silver Squeeze. And it was a lot of individuals. It was trending in multiple countries. And if you'll, I know you interview Andy Schechtman quite often from Miles Franklin, and he'll tell you that weekend was just insane.
He didn't have to tell me because we lived through it. I'm an independent broker for Miles Franklin, and my wife and I were trying to have a getaway vacation, and that just got quashed because the phone didn't stop ringing that whole time. Yeah, go ahead.
All of the bullion dealers who we've interviewed, they stopped taking orders around Saturday afternoon. Normally they're hedged over the weekend, and they take orders all weekend normally. They were seeing triple, quadruple their average business, and it's just continued nonstop since then, where people are just cleaning them out. All the retail, your local coin shops are pretty much sold out most of the time and desperate to get inventory.
Yeah.
All the online bullion dealers, if you go through their silver and their gold sections of their websites, it's all, you have to pre-order or notify me, alert me when it's back in stock.
Yeah, the most common product now is called Notify Me. Yeah.
Yeah, I have noticed that. And we actually just interviewed another bullion dealer the other day, SD Bullion, and the CEO from there was telling us, look, people are thinking that the bullion dealer, the big online places are making all this crazy profit now. But he was telling me our wholesalers' premiums to us have gotten higher also. I mean, they're just, they're those guys like Andy Schechtman, they don't get to buy it at spot price.
Right.
They're paying way higher than spot. They're having their usual markup, and it's throughout the entire supply chain that we're seeing these things. And now you're seeing things like what John Adams is often talking about. I know you interview him regularly. We actually just interviewed him also. I'm going to be uploading that tomorrow on our YouTube channel. But he's going after the Perth Mint and Kitco for these unallocated silver pools, which is an entirely different scam than we're talking about. I mean, COMEX is one thing, what's going on there in LBMA. And then we've got these other unregulated pools, unallocated pools of silver at the Perth and ABC in Australia. And Kitco, I understand, has also some issues there that John's attacking. There's fraud throughout the system. And the best way to address it is to just discuss it, present the evidence on YouTube or in a Reddit community like WallStreetSilver. We have to do these things in the alternative media because you're never going to see this type of discussion happen on CNBC. They are captured and controlled by the Goldman Sachs's and JP Morgan's. The only place to get this information is on YouTube and on Reddit right now.
It's funny how even some big name people who are inside the system say true things once in a while. There's a quote from Warren Buffett who says, when the tide goes out, we all get to find out who's swimming without a swimsuit on. And so partly draining the swamp by pulling physical silver out of these exchanges or off the shelves of retail dealers and that sort of thing, and therefore they have to replenish and that sort of thing, is a way that ordinary little people are taking their dipper of water out of the swamp and saying, let's see what the reality is, what the truth is, because that whole game of fractional reserve precious metals ownership or kind of, some people would describe it as a game of musical chairs. If you start removing the chairs, you get to find out, are there enough chairs for everyone or not? Because the whole system is based on faith and trust. And if that's untrue, if it's unjustified faith that people have in a system that's fundamentally corrupt, this is a way of exposing that. So I totally get that part of the mission. Where do you see this going next? I mean, maybe Ivan, I'll ask you, since we haven't heard that from you, is what's your vision? You said we needed a place to talk. Okay, great. That's a great impulse to get started. Where do you see that leading?
Yeah, I see it leading to a movement that will last. Literally, it'll be talked about for 50, 60, 70, or even 100 years. And I truly believe and have faith in this movement beyond anything. So it not only will it grow to beyond the numbers that we're expecting, like we expect 100 to 300,000 people by the end of the year in WallStreetSilver. But I truly believe it'll grow to the millions in the future. And then that's just a base for people to switch out of this manipulation fiat currency and really wake up to the reality. They can take that red pill, like what David Morgan always says. And yeah, that's what I truly believe in, is people will start waking up to the manipulation and want some real sound money, like what Jim was saying. And yeah, it will be a movement that will last generations. I truly believe in that.
We actually interviewed David many times online first, but then again at the Red Pill Expo in Hartford, Connecticut, about a year and a half ago. So it's a harkening back to that, where you mentioned the red pill concept. So this is a question that's perhaps unanswerable, but at least we can get you guys to weigh in on your thoughts around it. I'm sure this is not the first time you've been asked this, but we have a viewer submitted question from a Google user who says, I know every guest wants to avoid this question, Dunagun, but I'd really like you to try to pin these guys down on a timeline. Will the silver market blow up in the next 24 months, or can it go on for another 5 years? And I'll just add as a sidelight to that, I came to me the other day, I was speaking with someone who asked me the same question. They were trying to pin me down on it. And all of a sudden, you're going to laugh, I remembered my days as a dad of young babies when we were boiling pacifiers to sterilize them. And as long as the pot has water in it, it's boiling and boiling and boiling and boiling. It's the most boring thing in the world. Everybody says, watch pot never boils, whatever. It just keeps looking the same and looking the same. But the moment that sucker goes dry, things change in a big hurry, and you find out what's really going on. So do you each personally have in your analysis or your opinions or whatever that the market will blow up, silver market, within 24 months or another 5 years or more?
If you look at, part of this is the supply side. If you look at the global silver mining industry, production peaked back in 2015, 2016 at about 900 million ounces per year. And if you look at the numbers, production has been declining every year since 2015 by 2 or 3% per year. And a lot of people are speculating, and last year it was down 100 million ounces to 800 million ounces of silver were mined globally. And a lot of that is because the easy silver, the large deposits, those have been mined out over the past 50 years. And what the miners are dealing with now is lower quality ore, smaller deposits, more remote deposits. So there's a supply element to this. Whereas if you look at the demand side, industrial demand eats up about 500 million ounces per year. And that's growing because things like electric cars, solar panels, which are growing very quickly, consume silver. A lot of silver is in some of these new green technologies that are being, are coming, whether we like it or not, they're coming. So, and then there's also the investment side. There's several 100 million ounces that go to coins and bars that people want to store for their own safety. Now, historically, that's been about 220 to 250 million ounces, the investment side of things. And in the past year, that's grown to estimate, it's almost doubled in the past year. So you now are in a situation where industrial demand is about 500 million ounces and investment demand is about 500 million ounces. Whereas so we have about 1 billion ounces a year of silver consumption from industrial and investors. Now, but the miners are only producing 800 million ounces per year. So what we're in now for the first time, it's sort of in the second half of 2020 and now 2021, we're in a supply deficit. With the world is producing The estimates vary, but there's about 100 million to 200 million ounces per year that the miners simply cannot produce. So that what's happening is that's being sucked out of the vaults right now. It's estimated that there's about 3 billion ounces in London, New York, in the various depositories around the world. As that silver gets sucked up and consumed into industrial demand and investment demand, the way that they're able to rehypothecate all that paper silver in London and in COMEX is by having those ounces. They trade paper at something like 200 times what the actual physical silver is. If we suck that silver out of their vaults, then they are essentially becoming more and more leveraged, more and more paper for every ounce that they actually have in the vaults. At some point, that's going to probably break. No one can tell you when it's going to happen, but we do have supply deficits in the system right now. And at some point, I just got to think someone's not going to get their silver and something's going to break.
I'll tell you when it'll happen. Look back, 99% of all fiat currencies that will fail. Boom. And silver will never fails. There you go.
Well, I mean, that doesn't tell us when it's going to take off, really, which I think is what Dunagun's viewer wants to know. Is it going to happen in the next 24 months? Yeah, I'd love for silver to go to 50. That's how I'm invested. I'm invested in physical silver and silver miners. But of course, no one can, I wish I could pin someone down. Can I pin you down, Dunagun? What'd you say?
I just answered the question that when people criticize guests who we've had on who have been saying for years, because that's one of the criticisms that's leveled against our guests is, oh, they're like a broken watch. They always say the same thing. They always say, it's gonna run out. It's gonna run out. It's gonna go to the moon, whatever. They always say that. So someday they'll be right. It's like, it reminded me of that boiling pot, and just that it looks like nothing's changing, but in fact, you can get really close to that empty, and then suddenly the truth is revealed. So, and I don't know when that will happen. There's been other of our guests who said, rather than going directly after the major exchanges, people and I think John Adams has talked about this, if you just convert from synthetic and virtual, get out of SLV, get out of unallocated and pooled ownership, and get into the real thing. The closer you can get to holding something real in your hand is the closer you are to the truth, and you're reducing counterparty risk. And that harkens back to the reason I started my original web channel, which was at that time named Reluctant Preppers, was helping people to be aware and prepared. And we still we brought that forward. Now we say, awareness and preparedness in bullion sales, because it's live free and prosper. And so that idea of maintaining liberty, and part of liberty is the truth. And you guys are talking about the freedom to tell the truth. We had Rick Rule and Keith Newmeyer from First Majestic Silver on talking about a massive metal shortage coming. So I'll put up the screen on that one. People might want to check out that interview. It echoes a lot of the things that you said, Jim. We have some additional questions from viewers, and that is, when we had Ted Butler on, he talked about JP Morgan finally having covered most of their short position, perhaps even going long, perhaps having amassed the largest physical silver hoard ever in one place on Earth in the history. Boost Airpack says, when can we and what can we expect when the banks finally go long on metals because they have no other choice? Do you guys believe that with the activity of, you mentioned industrial demand, production shortfalls, and investment demand, including retail investment demand of your users, among others, do you believe that it will force a reckoning where we're going to see a spike in metals that's going to drive those banks or others who might in concentrated currently be short to go long?
Well, we've already started to see it. A lot of us are, the real bulls were upset at $25 silver or $26 silver where it's at. But if you look back the past 8 years, we were below 20. I mean, it got as low as 14 last year, I believe. So if you look at the silver market, breaking through $20 an ounce was when that happened in the second half of 2020, that was a real breakout, an 8-year high for the silver market. So I think what happened last year was those big players they realized they could no longer hold it below 20, which seemed to be the mark for a long time. And now they're really fighting hard to defend 30. It seems like they're fighting really hard to defend 28. in terms of $28 an ounce and not let it get above that price. Some of them, if you look, we have some members on our forum on Wall Street Silver who go into some very detailed analysis about which who's long and who's short, because some of these, in some of the official reports, they have to reveal these things. And some of them are turning their positions around and getting long. That's pretty obvious in the data. But, we never know exactly when the tripping point will be where it all happens.
There's a follow-up question here from a different user. This is from Nathan Foote, who says, knowing that the present wealth invested in metals is a fraction of a percent overall. We've certainly had Rick Rule from Sprott Asset Management talk about that in the past. In the existing environment, the physical silver market is truly tiny, is it not? Why are we so far unable to, quote, clear the shelves? Nuts. Back in February, it really felt like the shortage was felt. We the people. So from what you guys have learned, do you believe that, as you mentioned, Ivan, continued growth of users, continued spreading of the word, continued activity on the people part, Jim, what you're talking about, people taking care of their own budget, their own household, their own selves by acquiring something real and tangible. Ivan, as you point out, that's not like fiat that always goes to zero eventually, that we will turn that corner and the truth will out in this area of physical silver in particular, or precious metals in general?
Yeah, the way I see it is we just need to keep on, it's like slow and steady, keep on stacking physical silver. Like what John Adams was saying, start taking all of these unallocated and synthetic investments you have into these accounts and cash out and get real physical silver. That will help big time. Wall Street Silver eventually will grow to like just 300,000 people, and then them buying 1 ounce, even 1 ounce every single month. That's 300,000 ounces a month just of silver every single month coming out of anywhere, bullion dealers. So you're going to start seeing a lot of that, which is pretty exciting. Jim, do you have anything to add?
Taking the silver off the market is the big step. And our mission at Wall Street Silver is basically to create a new generation of stackers. One of the things Andy Schechtman has told me personally when we talk is he used to be worried that all of the silver stackers were growing old and going to die, and then who's going to keep doing it? Who's going to keep taking this metal off the market? Where is customers going to come from? And what he's been so excited by what we're doing is we're creating a new generation of stackers right now. We're creating a new generation of people who understand that gold and silver are important, and people should be investing a certain portion of their finances into gold and silver, physical gold and silver, and the precious metal miners, things like that. And our mission, if we can just create a couple 100,000, a few million new people who understand this, we're going to keep taking metal off the market, taking it out of these unpooled. If it's no longer on the market or in these in their vaults, then they can't create these unallocated pools to manipulate the price. So our mission is to grow the number of people who understand this and take the metal off the market.
I guess that leads us to how do people get connected with you? How do they get plugged into this Reddit subreddit group, Wall Street Silver? Where do they find you online? Because you're in more than one place.
Could you, throw a link in your description for us to the subreddit Wall Street Silver? You can have it. It's easy enough to make a Reddit account within about 30 seconds with an email address.
WallStreetSilver.com.
Yeah, we also, Ivan and I went out and bought the domain name WallStreetSilver.com, which then also leads to as a sort of a landing page, and that just leads to links back to the Reddit community and things like that, and our other social media.
Just in case they Greg Manarino us.
Yeah.
On Reddit.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We've had Greg on several times for a decade. And he has a new splash screen he puts up on his newsletter that he sends out, and it says over the target,
Oh yeah.
Blocked again, over the target.
He is a great interview. He is our highest rated on our YouTube channel. He is our number one viewed guest by far.
He's great.
Very outspoken, and also doing that as similar to how I noticed a similarity. John Adams, Gregory Manarino, and yourselves are all in it for the common person. He's known as the Robin Hood of Wall Street. John is known as his co-founded project with Martin North is In the Interest of the People, and yours is absolutely grassroots in nature. So when you get that common passion for standing up for the truth and the little guy, I think you're going to find that there's a lot of synergies, and that's going to be mutually supportive. The other thing that made me think of both Jim and I when you were just talking about the future is, in addition to the consequential effect of people stacking, is bringing truth to the financial environment, to bringing light into dark places. It's also, the more people that you get engaged, the more people who are getting aware of the risks that they weren't aware of that they're facing, the more people you're helping, the more people you're going to bring into the relative safety of being able to do something real and something meaningful for their family's future, not just for themselves, but for their children and their grandchildren, because heaven help us and our children and our grandchildren if we just keep marching along in this, trance that we're all been encouraged to do through this fiat banking and all that. So I think you guys are waking people up and encouraging them to wake each other up. And that's winning hearts and minds for their good, in addition to any consequence that they have on the physical availability of metals and the markets and all that. That's a secondary thing.
It's about hard assets too.
Yep.
Dunagun, it's hard assets. If you don't, if you believe, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted you, but
please,
it's not just silver, it's not just gold. And we have these discussions on WallStreetSilver on the Reddit community. It's about hard assets, because these paper assets, something's going to happen. I don't know when. I'm not pretending to have a crystal ball as to when it's going to happen, but in my core, I do not believe that the federal government and the Federal Reserve can keep printing trillions and trillions of dollars to finance these deficits. I mean, our government is collecting about $4 trillion in tax revenue this year, and they're spending $8 or $9 trillion. We are literally going to have a $4 or $5 trillion deficit in 2021. And after 2020, it was like a $3 trillion deficit at the beginning of the virus. So this is just not natural. And financial currencies, fiat currencies, were not designed to survive this. This is why we had the gold standard at one point, to prevent governments from doing things like this. And I just tell everyone, I tell my relatives, I tell my friends, buy land if you can find something affordable. Buy commodities. You got to have some hard assets that will survive the failure of a currency. And I don't know if we're looking at hyperinflation or if we're just looking at a major devaluation. I don't know what it's going to be, but something has to change about the course we're on. I don't believe that this is sustainable long term.
Absolutely.
We've been speaking with Jim Lewis and Ivan Bayoukhi, the co-founders of the subreddit group WallStreetSilver, here on Liberty and Finance. And just thank you guys for coming on this first time. I have a feeling that our audience is going to respond in sympathy with what your mission is and be very much interested in finding out more about joining your community. And I hope that your community appreciates this interview as well. And we can have you back on again soon, because there's a lot. It seems like things are accelerating. Things seem to be happening. Important, meaningful things seem to be happening faster and faster. And these are going to be times of change. So rather than people saying, you guys have been saying this for years, it's like, oh boy, a lot of things have happened in the past year that never happened before. And that's probably true about the coming year.
Exactly.
So let's stay plugged in and stay sharing and tuned in with each other. And thank you for being here this first time on Liberty and Finance.
We'll do it again sometime, Dunagun. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, we appreciate your viewers, and we appreciate yourself too. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks for being on.